morning, students. In the last lecture, we have talked about the execution of M&A, that is, what are the different steps which are followed in the entire process of mergers and acquisition. Now, one of the most important step of the process of M&A is the due diligence. So today we'll talk about in detail this most important step involved in the process of M&A, that is due diligence. In this chapter, we'll talk about the introduction to due diligence, the meaning, importance, reasons for conducting due diligence, costs of due diligence, various types of due diligence, and due diligence activities which are conducted in M&A. Introduction. Before actually explaining you the meaning of due diligence, I would like to recall the entire steps which are involved in the process of M&A. Now, the process of merger and acquisition, it starts from the development of an acquisition strategy. So at the stage number 1, the strategy for merger and acquisition is developed. Then at the second stage, in order to fulfill the strategy which is developed in the stage number 1, the companies, they try to find the suitable target companies. So in step number 2, a search is made for the suitable target companies who fulfill certain criteria. Then at the stage number 3, whatever target companies they have found in stage number 2, all these target companies are valued in order to find the best company with whom the company would like to merge or to acquire. Then at next stage, the company will finalize 2 to 3 prospective companies with whom it would like to merge or to whom it would like to acquire. Then it will start at the next stage, it will start communication with those companies so as to finalize one single company with whom the merger or acquisition will take place. Then after finalizing that single company, the initial negotiations start to take place. That is, both of these companies, they will start communicating with each other and negotiation will take place that will finalize the price of the deal. Now, once the deal price is finalized, thereafterwards, before completing the deal, before actually signing the contract, the companies would like to conduct due diligence. So by due diligence, they would mean they would like to cross check, they would like to analyze the data that whatever decision or whatever valuations they have made, whether these valuations are correct or not. So before actually completing the deal, before actually signing the contract, both of these companies, both buyer as well as seller, because both of them are interested in the value after the deal. So both of these buyers as well as the seller, they would like to conduct due diligence so that to confirm that whatever decision they are going to take or whatever valuation they have made in the entire process, whether that decision or that valuations are correct or not. So due diligence is a detailed evaluation. Once the proposal has passed through the initial screening, it is subjected to a detailed evaluation or a due diligence process. So after the preliminary task has been done, before finalizing the deal, before signing the contract, due diligence is conducted to be assured that whatever deal they have made, whether that deal will be fruitful in the future or not. So due diligence is a systematic process of acquiring and analyzing the information which helps a buyer or a seller determine whether to proceed with the transaction or not. So due diligence can be conducted by either buyer or seller or both of these parties to know that whatever M&A they are going for, whether that M&A will be fruitful for them. It includes assimilating and processing both quantitative and qualitative data so as to arrive at the best decision. So in due diligence, both buyers and sellers, they will collect data. That data could be qualitative or quantitative. By collecting that data, they will analyze and process the data and they will find that whether the transaction which they are going for, whether that transaction will give them profitable results or not. Moving on to the definition of due diligence. Due diligence is the process of verification, investigation, or audit of a potential deal or investment opportunity to confirm all the relevant facts and financial information and to verify anything else that was brought up during an M&A deal or investment process. So it is basically a verification process in which whatever facts and information have been collected in the preliminary steps, all those facts and information are verified with the help of financial analysis and to verify any additional facts which have been brought up during time to time. So due diligence is completed before a deal closes to provide the buyer with an assurance of what they are getting. So before the deal is finalized, before it is actually closed, before the deal is done, the due diligence is conducted by both the buyers and sellers to let them know that what is the value which they will get from that deal. Now, what is the importance of due diligence? Now, due diligence is a process which is conducted by both buyers as well as sellers. That is the company which is buying another company or acquiring another company, and the company which is being acquired. So, both of these companies, they must conduct due diligence to see that whether that deal is valuable or it is profitable for them. So, why due diligence is important from a buyer's perspective? That is the company which is acquiring the another company. So due diligence allows the buyer to feel more comfortable that his or her expectations regarding the transactions are correct. So, for example, if a particular company is going to purchase another company in order to increase its market share, so the market share can only be increased if the company buys its competitors. That is, if it make an acquisition in the same line of business and if it buys its purchases its competitor, only then it can increase its market share. So, due diligence basically help that buyer in knowing that whatever predictions or whatever expectations he has from the deal, whether that deal will provide him or will fulfill his expectations or not. Second, in mergers and acquisition, purchasing a business without doing due diligence substantially increases the risk to the purchaser. Now, obviously, in conducting due diligence, there are a lot of costs which are involved. A lot of experts have to be hired, financial analysis has to be done, softwares have to be installed, so it involves a lot of cost. But such costs involved are justified in terms of the benefits from this deal. So, if the merger and acquisition is done without conducting due diligence, the risk or the chance of failure is very high. So that is why it is important for buyer because a lot of money is involved in purchasing another company. Now, why due diligence is important from the seller's perspective? It is conducted basically to provide the purchaser with the trust. So obviously, so that the buyer must be sure of the value what they are getting from the deal. For that matter, seller also would like that a due diligence will be conducted so that a good value can be placed on their company. However, due diligence may also benefit the seller as going through rigorous financial examination may reveal that the fair market value of the seller's company is more than what was initially thought to be the case. So obviously seller company is that company which is going to get the price for selling their company. So in order to get the best price, to get the fair market value, they must also determine the market value of their company. So that is why due diligence is conducted from the seller's point of view because they also want to have good price from that deal. Now, why due diligence is conducted? What are the reasons for conducting due diligence? That why both sellers and buyers they have to conduct due diligence before actually finalizing the deal. First reason is to confirm and verify the information that was brought up during the deal or investment process. So basically whatever information has been collected in the preliminary stages of M&A process, to confirm that information and to verify that information, due diligence is conducted. So that to know that if everything is in place or not. Second reason is to identify potential defects. Now, due diligence is basically conducted to inspect. It's a kind of audit to check if all the things are in place or not. So, by checking, they can get to know if there are any kind of defects in the transaction or not. So, if the target company is claiming that they are having profits from the last 10 years. Now, how they can check their profits? Obviously, by referring to their financial statements. So, in due diligence, the company will actually check the financial statements of the target company that whether they are actually going into profits or losses. So it will help in identifying any kind of potential defects in the information which is supplied by either of the parties. Then third reason is to obtain information that would be useful in valuing the deal. So in due diligence, both the companies they would like to obtain some kind of financial qualitative or non-qualitative information that will help them in determining the price of the deal. That at what price A company will buy B company. For determining that price, due diligence, a proper analysis, a detailed evaluation is conducted for both of these companies so that a proper price of the deal shall be finalized. Last reason is to make sure that the deal or investment opportunity complies with the investment or deal criteria. So whenever the M&A process starts. It starts with development of a strategy and then selecting the companies on the basis of the criteria. So whatever company you are selecting, you should be sure that whether that company meets your criteria or not. So in this due diligence step, the companies, they make sure that with other companies with whom they are merging or acquiring, whether that deal is fulfilling the criteria of acquisition or not. Then we'll talk about the costs of due diligence. As I've told you earlier, that due diligence is a very expensive step because a lot of costs are involved in hiring the experts, in downloading the softwares, and in arranging all that tasks. So a lot of cost is involved in due diligence process, and it depends upon the scope of the effort and the duration of the effort. Sometimes the due diligence may last for a few weeks to months or to years also. So the cost will depend upon the scope of the activities which you are conducting in the due diligence and the duration of the project. So costs associated with due diligence are easily justifiable as compared to the risk associated with the failing to conduct due diligence. So although a lot of costs are involved, but these costs are justified because failure to conduct due diligence would invite more risks to the buyer or seller as compared to these costs, because most of the companies which usually fail, or the most of the merger and acquisition which usually fail, they are the result of the poor due diligence which they have conducted. So it is one of the essential steps which has to be conducted to avoid risk of the failure of M&A. Parties involved in the deal determine who bears the expense of due diligence. So usually both the buyers and sellers, they conduct due diligence. So they may share the expense, or they may pay their own respective expenses of the due diligence, and these expenses usually involve the costs or the expenses which are paid on hiring the experts who give you advices on various matters. Now, there could be basically three types of due diligence: financial due diligence, legal due diligence, and strategic due diligence. So, financial due diligence means, by financial, basically means money. So, by finance due diligence, we mean that if the target company has claimed that we are going to this much profits from the last these years. So, in financial due diligence, the bidder company will actually check their financial statements to see whether the company is telling the correct financial statements or not. So basically, in financial due diligence, all the financial aspects, various ratios, profits, costs, they are rechecked by taking the financial information from the target company. Second is the legal due diligence. So legal due diligence, before actually finalizing the deal, the companies check that whether all the legal formalities have been complied with. So the companies check that whatever merger or acquisition we are going to undertake, whether that merger acquisition is allowed under the present law system or not. So they will check the legal feasibility of their deal. Lastly is the strategic due diligence. So by strategy, we basically means the things which the company do for obtaining their objectives. So that is called a strategy. So the in strategic due diligence, the companies will see that whether the deal is in accordance with their strategy or not. So for example, if the company's strategy is to gain the market share, so the market share can be gained by horizontal merger or horizontal acquisition. So in strategic due diligence, the strategic fit between the deal and the strategy is done. So now all the three types of due diligence are explained in these three slides. So financial due diligence is determined to see whether the earnings and cash flows, or the profits, or the risks, or the maximum price which is payable to the target company, and the best ways to finance the merger. Then is legal due diligence, which is done to see whether the activity or the deal is within the framework of the legal formalities, and whether it completes all the formalities by the various regulators like SEBI, FTI, capital market, government rules and regulations. Lastly, strategic due diligence, which is done to see whether the deal matches with your strategy or not. Now, the most important part of this chapter is the what are the different activities which are conducted in due diligence. So, we have done the meaning of due diligence, the cost or importance, the reasons, but what activities are done, what tasks are done in conducting due diligence. So there could be n number of tasks which are done in due diligence that depend upon the type of the deal, the duration of the due diligence process, or the complexity of the deal. So there is no exhaustive list of the activities which are conducted in due diligence, but these activities may vary from deal to deal. So we will study a few types of activities which are done in the due diligence. First is the target company overview. So whatever company you are aiming to buy or to merge with, you will have an overview of that company, and that could include its business plans, about the nature of the business, about the geographical structure of the company, about the owner of that company, or a number of n different things to give you an overview of the business of the target company. Then you can check the financials of that company, obviously whether the financial statement, what are the financial statements, whether the company is going into profits or not, or what are the future projections about the profits, what is the amount of the capital which the companies require, what are the capital expenditures, what is the debt equity ratio, or whether there are any previous loans on the company, or whether the financial statements are audited or not. So these kind of financial, all the financial aspects will be checked in financials. Then we can check about the technology or the patents, that what patents does company have, and what is the lifetime of those patents, what trademarks does it have, or what copyrights or trade secrets. So what is the intellectual property status of that company, if it has good number of patents or trademarks, so that can give value to the bidder company after the deal. Then strategic fit, that as I've told you earlier also, that there must be a fit of the strategy between the deal and the target company's business. So whether the business which you are aiming to buy, so whether that deal matches with your strategy or not. So you are doing that deal in order to fulfill some kind of strategy. So whether that deal will fulfill the expectations of the strategy or not. Then target base. So that means who are the company's top customers. Then talking about the customer risks, or what are the warranty issues, any customer backlog. So what is the status or perception of the customers about the target company? This is also has to be studied in due diligence. Then one can study the management or the workforce of the target company, that what is the current management, what is the reputation, how they are appointed, then what are the incentives or bonuses given to the management, what are the policies of employment or employee manuals, the detailed background about the top officials, that is CEO or CFO, then what is the current compensation structure of the employees, and how employees are paid, fixed system, flexible payment systems. So about the management and their payment systems. Then they can also study about the legal issues, that whether there are any kind of pending litigation or legal cases on the company, and whether there are any claims which are made against the company by any outsiders, any settled litigation, or any governmental restrictions or proceedings on that company. So in this stage, they will basically check that if there is any kind of legal issue against that company. Then about that information technology, that how what kind of IT systems are used, and what is the usage level, any disaster recovery plan in case of the IT systems fail. So what is the status of the use of the IT in that company. Then about the corporate matters, that who are the current officers and directors of the company, what are the documents of the company, like memorandum, association, and the prospectus, and are there any subsidiaries of the companies, or what about the current stakeholders or shareholders, and whether the company properly fulfills its corporate laws, fulfill the provisions of the Companies Act. So any kind of matters relating to the corporate. Then environmental issues, that since because of the CSR initiatives and green environmental initiatives, that whether the company use any kind of hazardous materials in their operations, or do they follow strict environmental norms, or whether there are any environmental claims against the company. So such kind of, if whether that whether the company is responsive to the environment and CSR or not. Then about the production capabilities, that what is the plant capacity of that company, at what capacity it is operating, and to what extent it can increase the capacity, what is the monthly yield of that company, what materials are used in the production, and so on. Then about the marketing strategies, that how it marketed products, what kind of marketing strategies are being used, what are its suppliers, what are its distributors, any kind of agreements with the suppliers or distributors, some value chain agreements or franchisee agreements. So how the marketing is being done by that company. So these were some of the activities which can be done in the due diligence by different kind of companies. Although this is not a complete list, it may due diligence may include much more activities depending upon what is the type of the deal. But these are some of kind of the basic analysis which is done in the due diligence to check that what target company you are aiming to buy, whether it fulfill the expectations of the strategy, or whether it will give you fruitful and productive results or not. Any doubts and queries are welcomed on WhatsApp or email.